Boom! Right in your face. It's Dave and Johnny live. What's up? I'm Dave. Here's Johnny. What's up, Johnny?
What's up to you?
Yeah, it's on. We're on. We're back. It's good to see you, man. It's good to see you again. All this isolation. I'm enjoying doing these shows just so I can see my friends. We had Freddie and AJ last night. We did Ringside Report. We got a big weekend coming up. Dave and Johnny live right now. Wrestling Uncensored will drop on the channel tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow night, we're going to be live at 8 p.m. for a supersized UFC 249 watch-along. We're going to be here for the entirety of the prelims and then the pay-per-view. I was surprised by the dudes last night. They decided that they wanted to go on. What's going on here? I've been invaded again, Johnny. It happens all the time. Get back here. So
Very quickly this time.
Yeah, it was so fast. Like, as soon as I started the show, he's like, oh, is the show on? Get out of here.
Does he want to go see the snow outside?
Yeah, it's snowing outside. Why don't you go see the snow outside? Okay. I got him. Uh-oh. Double invasion. What an invasion. All right, can we... I think the show's gonna be back here soon. Are we ready here, John? Are we good to go? God damn.
That part might get edited out, unfortunately, but that's okay.
No, we don't edit anything out. You know, we get invaded sometimes. The whole family has to come in and remove the little guy. He just jumped in. So Freddie and AJ surprised me yesterday with saying that they wanted to be on for the prelims. I didn't think that they'd want to be on for 5 hours, but we're going to be on for 5 hours tomorrow night. They said, Dave, the people have spoken. UFC 249. It's got to be a 5-hour extravaganza. The prelims are too good. We have to do a watch-along for the prelims and the pay-per-view. So I said, okay. So we got the UFC 249 show, watch-along tomorrow night, 8 p.m., and then Sunday night, 7 p.m., we'll be on for the entirety of WWE's Money in the Bank here on the YouTube channel for the watch-along for Money in the Bank. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and when you subscribe to the channel, click the bell so you get notifications every time that we are on. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hitting that super chat at the bottom of the screen and supporting the Ringside Report Network, supporting Dave and Johnny live. Big Johnny. We have to talk about the UWF Dark Side of the Ring. We're going to recap that. We'll also give you an update on what happened at the UFC 249 weigh-ins this morning. But let's start with the task at hand, the Dark Side of the Ring episode that aired this week. We're almost done, Dark Side of the Ring. There's 2 more episodes left in the series. Next week, we've got the Road Warriors episode, and then we have the Owen Hart finale, and then we're done with Dark Side of the Ring. So we're getting down to it here. Big Johnny, what did you think of this week's episode on Herb Abrams and the UWF? I'm too young to remember the UWF. Did you ever watch this thing? Were you aware of the UWF when it was around in the early 90s?
I feel the first time I heard about this was Mick Foley writing about it in his book, but it felt like it was really short or just wasn't really that important. It wasn't as exciting to watch as it was to read about it. I guess they found out more information than Foley knew about it.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about the UWF. I'd heard, bits and pieces like you had over the years. I wasn't really around when this was going on. It was a weird story about a wrestling promoter, a guy who had a lot of money, who made his money, it seemed like, in the clothing business. They said at one point that he owned a clothing store sold for women, for plus-size women, and the name of the store was I'm a Big Girl Now. Like, how offensive is that? Could you imagine being a plus-size woman going to shop at a store like that called I'm a Big Girl Now? It's like, where did you get that? Oh, I got that at I'm a Big Girl Now. It's pretty offensive.
Yeah, but you gotta remember, this was the 80s, though. You can get away with stuff like that.
Well, I know. You could get away with stuff like that, but it's just shocking when it was like, yeah, it's a store for plus-size women. I'm a Big Girl Now. I was like, really? I'm surprised. Like, you're kind of insulting your clientele, but whatever. He seemed like a weird guy who didn't really understand how to do proper business. Like when we saw him doing a pay-per-view at the MGM Grand Arena there in Vegas, and he had nobody there, and his buddy there that was helping him run the show was like, man, this is a terrible night. But Herb Abrams seemed very happy because they had the MGM. They were in the MGM, even though it was a multi-thousand-seat arena, and they only filled about 250 seats. He didn't really seem to know how to run a wrestling business. It seemed to be just a whole mess of a show that seemed doomed from the start. And, of course, there was the sizzle to the documentary about all the cocaine and hookers that he liked so very much. And that was really the main part of the story, how much Herb Abrams liked cocaine, right? That was most of the documentary. It's like, wow, Herb really liked cocaine. Here are some of the wrestlers he paid to have. At one point, he said Bruiser Brody was going to work for him, even though Bruiser Brody had been dead for a year. He said Blackjack Mulligan was going to be his talent booker, but apparently Blackjack was in jail at the time. So there's a lot of weird stuff that went on with the UWF. I don't know, man. It was a weird story. It wasn't my favorite episode of Dark Side of the Ring. It was interesting because, it was a nice little package. If you didn't know about the UWF, you didn't know the story of Herb Abrams, it kind of summarized it in a nice 40-minute documentary that was, entertaining. It wasn't boring. It was fun to watch, but I don't know. It wasn't. I feel like his story is not that important. Like the Herb Abrams story, like who really cares? People aren't talking about him. He had a failed wrestling promotion. He died from a cocaine overdose. He liked hookers. Okay. Like I don't know, man. There are other people like the Chris Benoit story. I care about that. The Road Warriors, I care about that. Even the David Schultz thing, I cared more about that than the Herb Abrams. To me, the Herb Abrams one has been the weakest one of the series. I still enjoy the show. I liked it, but it was my least favorite of all the ones that we've seen so far. Season 1 and Season 2.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, unlike the other ones, this isn't something that you grew up with. It's just like you heard about this here and there, but you never really watched it or anything. Apparently, it's on ESPN Classic Canada, but I never even saw it either. And it was kind of messed up a bit, too. They said like there was like 2 pay-per-views. There was really only 1 pay-per-view, like the MGM one. That was like a special event. It wasn't a pay-per-view.
Oh, they said it was a pay-per-view.
Yeah, they got that mixed up a little bit. And they were supposed to have a 3rd pay-per-view, but it didn't happen, and everything just fell apart. The thing only lasted for like maybe 5-6 years. So, I mean, it's kind of rough in that period of time where pretty much WCW started to pick up at that point in time.
Sure, and he thought he was going to compete with Vince McMahon. That was obviously not going to happen. He did have a solid roster of talent, though. He had Cactus Jack before Vince did. Orndorff was there. I mean, he had some good guys. Dr. Death, Steve Williams, He had a decent roster. He seemed to understand wrestling talent, but at the same time didn't seem to understand how to promote it or how to put it together. It seemed like a lot of nonsensical stuff was going on in that promotion. A lot of gimmick matches for no reason. He's one of these guys that they call them money marks, right? Guys that have a lot of money, but they're not really wise to the wrestling business or how the wrestling business works or the ways of certain carny-type wrestlers who will take advantage of them and squeeze every penny while doing the least amount of work. We've seen people like this in professional wrestling before, and a lot of them are no longer in professional wrestling. Herb Abrams was a cocaine-addicted money mark, right?
Well, he loved wrestling a lot. I give him that. He wanted to promote wrestling. He wanted to work with Vince, too. It's just Vince didn't want to work with him whatsoever, so he got mad and tried to go against Vince, which probably wasn't the best idea. But, I give him credit for that he went up against, like, the biggest company in the world, and he got Andre the Giant for a little bit of time. I mean, he tried.
Yeah, but again, you look at the most successful wrestling companies in the history of the wrestling business. They're mostly run by wrestling people. People that live and die by professional wrestling. People that grew up in the wrestling business. 2nd, 3rd generation promoters like Vince McMahon. Ex-wrestlers like Vern Gagne in the AWA. or the Von Erichs in WCCW. They ran that promotion. Fritz ran that promotion for a very long time, successfully. It seems to me that if you want to run a wrestling promotion, you kind of have to be a wrestling person, or at least put your trust into real wrestling people that have your best interests at heart. I think about Dixie Carter. She was somebody who came into the wrestling business with very little experience and very little knowledge about professional wrestling, spent a lot of money, and I think that there were some people that maybe didn't have Dixie's best interests at heart. They didn't have TNA's best interests at heart, and you saw what happened there. Dixie Carter's no longer involved with that company. And there are many examples of this throughout the years. I hope Tony Khan doesn't become, a Herb Abrams down the road. He's going to be a dark side of the ring. I don't think Tony Khan has a cocaine problem, but, he's one of these guys that comes into wrestling with very little experience. Obviously a lifelong fan, very knowledgeable about professional wrestling, but as far as running a wrestling company, this is his first shot. And he's got a lot of money, and he's spending it, and he's putting his faith in the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny Omega. It's working so far, but, we've seen historically with people like Herb Abrams, with people like Dixie Carter, with people like, all the different people that ran WCW into the ground, right? A lot of them weren't wrestling people. And that didn't turn out well in the end. The real wrestling people, the people that know professional wrestling, know the ways of wrestling, know all the tricks of the trade, those are the ones that stay around long term. I mean, it's only Vince really at this point, but you look at the history of wrestling promotions, Stampede, a lot of them are, run by ex-wrestlers, and there's a reason for that. Because ex-wrestlers know how to run a wrestling company properly, and ex-wrestlers know the tricks that the wrestlers will try and pull on the promoters. Herb Abrams, I don't think his enemies were the wrestlers. I really, he's one of these guys that walked into wrestling. I don't think the problem was wrestlers maybe not having his best interests at heart. I think that, Herb Abrams' fundamental problem was that he just liked cocaine too much. And as we all know...
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Right? We know that.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
And we found that out many, many times over in that Herb Abrams documentary.
Well, I think it's kind of different, a lot different with Tony Khan, right? Because Herb, his biggest problem was he didn't have like a major television station to broadcast UWF. He had like a minor little thing that we didn't really see until like much later on here in Canada. And for people getting on pay-per-view, I imagine not everyone could get it on pay-per-view either. So it was kind of tough for him starting out there. It's totally different for Tony Khan. Like AEW didn't start off right away on television, but it didn't take them too long.
But you know what I'm saying as far as people with money who are fans who get into the wrestling business and try to promote a company, it doesn't always turn out so well.
Unfortunately not, and that's what happened with him. And the problem is, too, he had too many demons. I mean, you say the cocaine, he also had the problem with the strippers, too. $4,000 on strippers a night.
It's not strippers. Rough. Those are escorts, John. Strippers just take off their clothes. Escorts, ladies of the evening, they have relations with you. From what I understand, that seemed to be the deal in the documentary. I don't want to get anybody confused here, John. He wasn't spending $4,000 on strippers. He was spending it on ladies of the evening. Friends of the road, as you might say.
It was kind of weird how there was a lot of debate on how he passed away. Like, apparently he was like, it seemed like some people were debating if he was still alive or not, which I think was a stupid debate, but some people like to think that.
I don't understand what the deal is with Dark Side of the Ring. Whenever somebody obviously dies of a cocaine overdose, they're like, maybe he's still alive. It was the same with the Gino Hernandez story. It was like, it seemed like Gino really liked to do a lot of coke, and he probably OD'd on coke. And in the documentary, they're like, maybe he was murdered, or maybe he faked his own death. And then again here in the Herb Abrams thing, they're like, maybe he's still alive. And then there was that thing where somebody else promoted UWF and they swear that Herb Abrams showed up and threatened to sue, but like he'd been dead for a while. Come on. He's dead. He died of a cocaine overdose. Let's be real here. You do that much coke, your heart can't handle it, you die. It's what happens. It's happened to many, many people, thousands, if not millions of people throughout the 1980s and early 90s. It happened. A lot. A lot. Stay away from it. Right,
but I believe someone like acting like it's him went there and tried to get some money for UWF. I can imagine something like that. One of his friends or something, someone acting to be like him. I could see something like that happen.
Maybe. But do you really think he faked his own death? Come on. You know how hard it would be to fake your own death? He's not capable of that.
Well, definitely not the point that he was at when he owed a lot of money and everything. Like, to get yourself out of that, you would need money. So I don't think he had that whatsoever. More than likely, he OD'd. It's just, did he OD or did, like, something else happen to it? Did someone, like, take him out?
Why would you think he got murdered now? Now you're throwing another conspiracy theory into this, John. What are you talking about? He clearly had a cocaine problem. His heart gave out on him because of too much John Jones powder. What are you talking about?
I believe there was another, like, little debate about whether someone, like, went there and collected debt or something.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
That's it, John. That's just the way it is.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
And it can kill you sometimes, and that's what happened to Herb Abrams. There's no debt collection. There's no big conspiracy. He didn't fake his own death. He died from cocaine. He died from too much cocaine. And that happens. And that's a warning to you, kids. Don't be like Herb Abrams. Okay, Johnny North? I know you're in the wrestling business. You're a big pro wrestler. Stay away from the demons, all right?
I think I'm doing okay. I'm not too worried about myself.
And as we'll find out next week on Dark Side of the Ring, don't ever party with Road Warrior Hawk.
I met Hawk. He was a great guy, actually.
You met Hawk? When did you meet Hawk?
It was like 2003, I think. I wrestled for Rougeau. Like, he wrestled for Rougeau. It was right before they went back on Raw.
Wow. It was just Hawk?
No, it was the Road Warriors versus the Quebecers. This happened at the auditorium.
Whoa. So you met, did you meet Animal too, or just Hawk?
Yeah, well, I just remember Hawk more because I just had, like, my first match, and, like, he was the first guy to say, hey, kid, good job. So that really stood out for me. It was like, man, Hawk's awesome. Animal was there, but Hawk's the one I had the interaction with, so I always think Hawk's an awesome guy now for that.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. Not everybody could say that Road Warrior Hawk saw their match and said, hey, kid, good job. Did he start by saying, well? Did he start? No?
No, it wasn't like that, no. Pretty much exactly what I said.
That's too bad. Because that's how all of his promos would go, right? Animal would go, tell him, Hawk. And then Hawk would go, well. That was awesome. And then he'd, go into whatever tirade he had. Those promos were great. The Road Warriors were great. I've said it many times. I think they're the greatest tag team ever. They're my favorite tag team. No one will ever beat the Road Warriors. They're the best, most badass tag team ever. I'm looking forward to the Dark Side of the Ring next week on them because, I'm more familiar with the Road Warriors. I know their story. I'm looking forward to seeing how they tell it. The Owen Hart one afterwards. Get ready for that in a couple weeks. We're going to get real misty-eyed. It's going to get a little teary-eyed, I think, on Dave and Johnny Live when we recap the Owen Hart story, right? That's going to be hard to watch.
Well, Owen Hart, it seems like that's just going to lead into the movie, apparently, that's going to be made about Owen. And this is the fun part about watching these Road Warriors, Owen Hart docs, is that we already know a lot, but it's just the stuff that you didn't know about. That's really the best part about these shows.
They're making an Owen Hart movie?
Apparently they're going to be making one, yeah.
Interesting. Like a documentary or like a scripted movie? Somebody's going to be playing Owen?
I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out, but I believe Martha's behind a lot of it, so it won't be a WWE movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, Yeah, you can bet on that one, Johnny. Anything else stand out for you in this Herb Abrams UWF Dark Side of the Ring story? It's just a lot of, cocaine, ladies of the evening, and some goofy pro wrestling with nobody in the crowd.
Well, it was cool to have Mick Foley on there, just to get his experience there, and it seemed like he had a very positive experience, even though his checks didn't cash, but he still got to wrestle his idol on a huge show. So he still had cool moments, especially when he's just starting out. I mean, just to get those experiences, they're worth a lot.
Seems weird for Mick Foley 2 episodes after the Jimmy Snuka episode talking about wrestling his idol Jimmy Snuka in the UWF. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Is he still your idol, Mick? I would say probably not.
Oh, I think it hasn't changed. His feelings on him, anyways. I mean, what happened? That's a totally different situation.
Yeah, I think sometimes things that happen change your feelings on a person. Like, look at Chris Benoit. You don't feel the same way now about Chris Benoit as you did when he was alive. Sometimes when you do things like that and the facts come to light, changes your opinion of a person.
Well, there's just a difference between the person and the quality of their work. I mean, it doesn't change the quality of his work.
All right. Big Johnny, UFC 249 is tomorrow night. I'm going to be here doing the watch-along with Freddie and AJ. Freddie and AJ wanted to know if you were going to be on the watch-along too. Are you going to join us? Special guest here and there?
It's Saturday night, right? I'll try to catch some of it. I don't know if I'll be able to catch all of it, but I'll definitely try to watch some of it.
Yeah, but are you going to be...
I had no idea.
Are you going to be on the
You guys are doing
watch-along?
5 hours. I had no idea you were doing 5 hours.
Yeah, we're doing 5 hours. So, when somebody needs a break, we're going to need you to jump in and fill the gaps, man. Come on.
We'll have to wait and see. It's a long show. Those UFC shows are really long. I don't know how you guys do that.
Well, jump in at some point during the watch-along tomorrow night. All right, Johnny? I'm promoting it. You will be on the watch-along. You will show up at some point during the UFC 249 watch-along tomorrow night. I'll be here. AJ will be here. Freddie will be here. And Johnny North will be here as well for some of the UFC pay-per-view.
In the chat, at least.
No. On the show.
The chat.
No. We're going to see you. At the UFC weigh-ins today, everybody made weight except for Jeremy Stevens. He weighed in 4.5 pounds over. Supposed to make 146 at the top limit. He made 150.5. I think the fight is still on with Calvin Kattar, although I don't know if that's 100% official. Everything else is on. Every other fight is happening. Henry Cejudo versus Dominick Cruz. They both made 135. Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. They both made 155. Everybody's ready to go. Jairzinho weighed in at a whopping 260. I think Ngannou weighed in over 260 as well. 261.5. I wonder if he had to cut weight to make the 265 limit. 261.5. That's a big dude right there. Huge.
Yeah, they both look gigantic.
What do you think of Greg Hardy saying he wants to go to the WWE? Have you ever heard that guy talk? He can't cut a promo.
He was pretty good at football. I remember when he played for the Cowboys. He was pretty good. I don't know about talking, though. I haven't heard him talk.
He seems like a bad guy. He can't talk. He seems kind of dumb. He's not a great UFC fighter. I don't want to see him in the UFC or the WWE. Awful.
Yeah, but we've seen a lot of football players become wrestlers, so I wouldn't be surprised if it happens one day. But hopefully he just stays in the UFC for now, because I don't think WWE is going to hire any new talent anytime soon.
Especially with his background, man. Right? Especially with the things, the domestic violence issues in his past. WWE's not going to want to hire him. I'm surprised the UFC's going there.
Right, but sometimes when you have the star power, sometimes they ignore stuff like that.
Does he really have the star power, though? WWE doesn't ignore that stuff either. They take that seriously. Nobody's doing that stuff on the main roster. Remember Rich Swann?
Right. And
he had that incident.
He's still with his wife.
And he's still with his wife. They had like an incident. I don't think she pressed any charges, but there was a deal at the time. Cops were called, and the WWE fired him, and that was it. Even when everything was kind of cooled off and things are fine with Rich and his wife there, the WWE still hasn't hired him back. So, they take that stuff pretty seriously, Big Johnny.
They do. It's an unfortunate situation because I met Rich Swann, another great guy. It sucks, but unfortunately he didn't have the star power. And it's like, well, if this is a problem, cut. It's kind of like what happened with Enzo as well. Like, if he's too much of a problem, cut. We don't want him.
Look at you name dropping today. You're such a big star, Johnny North. You've really done it all. You've wrestled everybody. You've worked in all the locker rooms, working in locker rooms with Rich Swann and the Road Warriors and Jacques Rougeau. I mean, you've done it all, Big Johnny. You've had quite a wrestling career.
I've had a taste. That's about it. Still want more, but now the world's closed off, so it's kind of rough now, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's hard for pro wrestling, right? What have you been hearing from your wrestling friends? Like, what are indie wrestlers feeling right now? I'm sure you're talking to other wrestlers. What's the read, and when do you guys think you can get back to work?
It's definitely going to be a long time. I don't see it happening at least until maybe after the summer, because you need things to start getting back to normal. And it seems like in Montreal, at least, it's going to be a couple of weeks before we even get to phase 1 of that. So to get to like the final phase, that's going to be, I think, months from now. So it's going to be a while. Hopefully, fingers crossed in the fall, but a lot of feds want to run with 25% capacity. I don't know if a lot of them can, actually. So it's going to be rough. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's it. Kind of start running shows with fewer people. You would think there'd be some kind of way to run an outdoor show in the summertime with social distancing. The wrestlers obviously couldn't do it. And the only problem I would see is with an indie show, you don't really have the money to test all the wrestlers, so it could be dangerous for them, right? It's tough.
Oh, it's dangerous for a lot of people. Dangerous for the people that would be there as well. So, yeah, it's tough because a lot of them don't have the funds to pull this off. Like AEW and WWE can pull it off because they obviously have the funds to do it, to test people like every day almost. But, yeah, these feds here, not so much. So it's kind of unfortunate, but it's still up in the air what's going to happen.
Yeah. We don't know, man. Everything is uncertain right now, right? The future is completely uncertain. What we do know is we have wrestling events coming up. We have WWE Money in the Bank this Sunday. We have AEW Double or Nothing May 23rd. I am underwhelmed at that title match. I mean, seriously? Jon Moxley and Luke Harper? Dean Ambrose and Luke Harper for a world title as a headliner for a pay-per-view? That's weak stuff, man. That's not good. Like, no matter how you slice it, it's not good. It's not what I want to see. AEW has so much talent, and they're doing so many things right. It really annoys me that they're doing this. I'm like, really? Moxley and Brody Lee? Who wants to see that?
Well, you say so much talent, but unfortunately not all their talent's going to be there. They're not available, unfortunately. Hangman's not going to be there. Apparently the Bucks might not even be there.
Why not?
Pac's not there either because of COVID concerns.
Man, no Bucks?
It's rough, I know.
Why aren't the Bucks in Florida?
Because I believe one of them just had like a newborn.
Okay.
So that's why.
Man.
And Hangman apparently as well, so.
Why isn't Hangman showing up to the tapings? Matt Hardy was there. Kenny's there.
Well, if they're not comfortable wrestling, they don't want to wrestle, so that's what happens.
Man.
So I think AEW is doing the best they can with the roster that they have.
Are you telling me we're not going to get a tag team title defense from Kenny and Hangman at Double or Nothing? No Hangman at Double or Nothing?
Hopefully we do, but definitely not next week because next week's already been taped, and they've already taped Kenny and Matt Hardy teaming again. So maybe it's just going to be Kenny and Matt as team.
Who are they wrestling this time?
I think it's going to be Ortiz and Santana, I think.
Okay. Cody versus Lance Archer for the AEW title, TNT title. That's happening at Double or Nothing. MJF and Jungle Boy, for some reason, was announced this week. Jon Moxley and Brody Lee for the title. And a casino ladder match for a future AEW World Championship match. Is it weird that they're doing a ladder match for a title shot like 2 weeks after Money in the Bank? Week and a half?
Oh, it's fine. It's just a ladder match. It's not like a cash-in kind of thing. I think it's just you get a title shot.
If you win the ladder match.
Right. That's fine.
I don't know. Seems weird. Casino ladder match. What happened to the casino battle royal? I guess you can't have that many people in the ring.
Well, also the Battle Royal, I mean, it was fun little spots here and there, but I think a ladder match is much more exciting, no?
Yeah, for sure. Who do you book in it and who wins? How many people are going to be in this thing?
Well, that's a great question. I'm not sure, but just off the top of my head, I think Scorpio Sky, because they've been kind of pushing him, and it seems like they want to push him more in a singles route. So I think him getting a title shot, probably not being the champion, but just building up to face the champion, I think that's what they're going to do.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I'm with that 100%. All right, Big Johnny. We got a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
This is a huge problem with AEW that they were building up people, but because of COVID, they kind of changed the direction with a lot of people. So they've kind of had to switch gears, just pretty much set up the pay-per-view in these like 3 weeks. It's kind of rough.
Yeah. It's been tough, man. It's been tough for the whole wrestling business. It's been tough for AEW and WWE to get a lot of their key people on TV. Edge and Randy Orton are going to be on Raw on Monday night, though. That's a good one. And AJ Styles came back, and he's going to be at Money in the Bank. I thought it was going to be Jinder. It's AJ. Yes.
Well, AJ said in an interview that he wasn't supposed to come back right away, but apparently they need the star power, and they definitely do, because I think it's just the Money in the Bank ladder match. That's pretty much the only thing I'm really interested in. Like, all these other matches, it's not a lot of fun. Like, it's fun watching AEW because they have an atmosphere. But WWE, it's just, there's no energy. It's rough. It's hard to watch these matches.
Yeah, it's not that fun. There are some moments that are good. I don't hate the show. There's stuff that I see on Raw that I like. There's stuff that I see on SmackDown that I like, but it doesn't have the same vibe. Certain wrestlers are able to do it, though. Certain wrestlers are able to go out there and have a good match or have a good promo. AJ Styles' promo on Raw this week I thought was really good. AJ's one of those super talents that can go out there. He doesn't need people in the ring. I thought the Viking Raiders and Street Profits had a good match on Raw this week. Like, you can go out there and do it. And this is something I don't understand. A lot of people are like, oh, it's so boring. I don't want to watch unless there's fans there. People are saying this not just for WWE, but for the UFC too. I understand for WWE, the wrestlers play off the crowd. So there's a certain amount of energy and a part of the performance relies on the crowd. But a fight doesn't rely on the crowd. It's not a performance.
Well,
they're not trying to bring the crowd up or bring the crowd down. It has nothing to do with it. I don't understand what people are watching. Are you watching the fighters and the wrestlers, or are you watching people in the audience? Like, there's so many people that are like, I don't want to watch it because there's no crowd. Do you watch for the crowd? I've never heard anybody say, man, did you see the crowd tonight? So fun to watch. No one's ever said that in the history of ever. Ever. Except maybe the night after WrestleMania, but it's, did you hear the crowd tonight? They were so loud and they were chanting and they were doing this and that. Nobody ever watches for the crowd. You don't watch a show to see the people in the goddamn audience. You see a show to watch the people in the ring, in the octagon. What are people doing here? I don't understand why people are complaining so much that there's no crowd. People are like, I'm not going to watch because there's no crowd. Really? You watch for the crowd? You watch to see the people in the crowd? A lot of those people are not very pretty. I'd rather see the people in the ring. Much prettier. You seen Randy Orton? Beautiful.
Well, I think it's a totally different scenario. Wrestling and fighting, it's totally different. Like the wrestlers play off the crowd a lot of the time. UFC, I mean, it's just really a sport. It's more just those two guys. I mean, it's fun when there's more of an atmosphere, but it's really not necessary. You're really just watching the fight. I don't see why people would get upset about that. We saw the UFC in Brazil. It was fine like that. I had no problem watching that.
It was a little bit strange. It's not usual for the TV viewers, but so what? Get accustomed to it. Get used to it. The fights are going to be awesome. There's no reason to say, oh, I'm not going to watch because there's no crowd. Really? Well, next time you want to buy a pay-per-view, why don't you just buy a pay-per-view of the crowd and just watch that? Because it seems like that's what a lot of people want to see. Just like human beings sitting in seats yelling and drinking alcohol. Come on. Get it together.
That's what people want to see. Let them go see that. But I think for the most part, UFC will probably see a pretty decent buy rate because there hasn't much of anything going on. So I think people just want something to be entertained with.
And I think we're going to be entertained, man. I think we're going to have a great UFC show tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The prelims will start here on TV at 8 p.m., and our watch-along will start right here on the YouTube channel at 8 p.m. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and when you do, you click that bell so you get notifications every time that we're on. We will be back on tomorrow morning for Wrestling Uncensored, the 11 a.m. premiere right here on the YouTube channel. Johnny North will be in the chat watching along with you. I may jump in as well during the show on the chat. You can talk to me while you're watching the show. And then tomorrow night, 8 p.m. for the UFC 249 watch-along. Freddie and AJ will both be here. Johnny North will be making a special guest appearance. And then, of course, Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here back on the channel for the WWE Money in the Bank watch-along. Get our live reactions on all the fights and all the matches this weekend. It's going to be jam-packed. It's going to be a lot of content. Keep supporting the channel, hitting that super chat, supporting the sponsors, IP Vanish, and Stitcher Premium. Thank you to everybody watching. Thank you to Big Johnny. This has been Dave and Johnny live. See you later.
Bye-bye.